We're the Wild Center, this is Lunchtime Live. We're talking about nature and exciting wildlife. Encounters with otters and owls too, from Tupper Lake right to you. Learn about the plants and trees, there's so much to explore and see. Lunchtime Live, it's time to start the show. From the Wild Center, here we go.
Good afternoon, everybody. Michael here with another edition of Lunchtime Live presents Nature Lab. This week, we'll be checking out tree defenses with Kayleigh. So you'll be checking out trees from the inside to the outside, from the bottom to the top, and looking at all the different adaptations that help them survive no matter where they are. Happy exploring, everybody.
All right. Hey, everyone, and welcome to this week's Nature Lab. My name is Kayleigh, and today we are going to be talking about tree defenses. So what do you think about when you think about organisms surviving in the wild? Maybe you think about a lynx and its big paws that act as snowshoes, or maybe its predatory instincts that allow it to hunt. Maybe you think about porcupines and their sharp quills that actually protect them from predation. Or maybe you think about ravens and their ability to fly huge distances in search of food. Trees actually face many of the same hardships that animals do. The search for growing space, search for food, search for water, tough weather. They face harsh winters and wind, and then hot, dry summers. They face predation of seeds, nutrients, and foliage. But unlike animals, trees aren't mobile, so they can't just get up and escape when they're facing these hardships. So they have adapted and evolved other methods for protecting themselves and for weathering and surviving these hardships. So today, I'm going to talk about a few of the many ways that trees defend themselves in the silent war zones that they exist in. All right, so to start us off with, I'm going to be going over some tree defenses basically from the inside out. So to start us off, we're going to be talking about the physiology of wood. Okay, so we're going to be starting deep under the outer visible layers of wood. In the very center of a tree's stem, there's a section which is called the heartwood. Most of you are probably pretty familiar with tree rings. So basically, each year of growth is expressed by visible rings which are inside of the tree. So each year, a tree will produce a layer called the sapwood. This layer is used by the tree for pulling water up from the roots and then distributing it to the leaves so they can photosynthesize and make nutrients from sunlight and carbon dioxide. At the end of every year, this layer becomes a ring, so it loses its vitality and then it becomes a part of the heartwood. The heartwood's only purpose of the tree is to provide structure and support. This is what allows it to grow competitively so that it can get tall enough to get enough sunlight so that it can use photosynthesis and then survive. All right, so what are some of the common problems that trees have adapted defenses to protect themselves from? Are you familiar with how animals survive harsh weather conditions? A lot of people are. Some of them are pretty common knowledge, like hibernation and brumation. If you've been watching our Lunchtime Lives, there have definitely been some programs about it. But how do stationary trees survive long, cold winters or harsh, hot summers? They can't just pack up and move for better weather, and they don't have the ability to find shelter from wind. Trees have complex, deep, and widespread root systems. These roots help anchor the tree into place. If you've ever seen a tree uprooted from a wind blowdown, then you might have seen these sometimes massive amounts of soil that rip up when the tree gets knocked over. So this is called a root ball, and it's basically a testament to a tree's will to fight against the wind. So roots will grow out and then also down, and they work really hard to hold the tree in place. In addition to roots, some trees grow super hard and sturdy and sometimes don't get very tall to withstand and resist wind, while other trees are super willowy and flexible, which allows them to bend over in the wind, which relieves some of the pressure and the stress that it would put on the organism otherwise. Trees like aspens and poplars often have more flexible trunks to combat the pressure, whereas pines like ponderosa pines and red pines are thicker and more firm. Most trees here in the Adirondacks don't really have to deal with extreme drought, but many trees across the dry and desert Southwest and, of course, in the mountainous regions of the United States and others are extremely well adapted for months of extreme heat and very little water. One way that trees deal with this lack of water and droughts are they'll have a sort of waxy covering over their leaves. So basically, the tree works really hard to get water and brings it up into the leaves so it can use photosynthesis. And this waxy outer covering will prevent the tree from losing water that it doesn't need to lose. So it basically decreases the chance of the tree losing water to evaporation, which will allow them to survive longer in drought conditions. There's a few different ways that trees combat predators. So different predators that might attack trees are diseases, bugs, and then also animal browse. The main way that I'm going to talk about today is through a sticky substance called pitch. You also might be familiar with it called sap. So basically, this pitch, the tree will send it to sort of attack any kind of organism that comes in. So, for example, bark beetles, they'll burrow into a tree and then they'll lay their eggs inside of the sapwood. Once the eggs hatch, the young bark beetles will sort of eat their way through these little tunnels in the sapwood. If they do enough of it, they can girdle a tree. And girdling is just when the tree no longer is able to get nutrients up and down. So if the bark beetles are all in there sort of eating, if the tree tries to push them out is through pitch.
Welcome back, everybody. I hope you had fun exploring with Kayleigh. So your challenge today is to hop on over to wildcenter.org/naturelab and to download our handy data sheet here all about tree defenses. So our challenge for you is to think about those defenses that Kayleigh talked about and think about other defenses or other challenges that trees could face and the defenses that they'd have for them. So for example, Kayleigh talked a little bit about drought and wind and how that could be challenging for a tree. You may want to think a little bit about where trees live. So I'm right now in our High Peaks exhibit. So these are model trees that will live up on the top of the mountains here in the Adirondacks. And they're very different shaped and have different adaptations that they're using to survive up in those windy areas and snow-covered areas, while trees that may live down by the river, down by the Racket River Oxbow here at the Wild Center, may have some different adaptations to deal with living right near the water. So those are a couple examples you can think about, but anything's fair game. Think about a tree that lives near you and all the different challenges it could face, and then go ahead and draw them and describe them on your data sheet. Happy sciencing, everybody.